I'd like to call the site plan review committee to order for Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025. Roll call, please.
President Kardowski.
Here.
Trustee Paul.
Here.
Member Kurowski.
Here.
Member Persick.
Here.
Member Quinn.
Here.
Member Pamprin is online. He's still working his audio. Member Rathburn.
Here. Here.
Thank you, Dan.
Hi, Dan.
Hi, guys.
Stand for pledge, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And please remember that I am the world in uniform. I have no changes to the agenda. I need a motion to approve. Have a motion.
Madam President, I'd like to make an announcement before we start. I think we all should congratulate our president for another 3 years of leadership in the village of Ashwaubenon.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Gary. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. I need action on the minutes for 2025. We have a motion and a second to approve those minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 6, items for discussion and possible act. 6A, consider, discuss, act on a site plan review for a vestibule addition and exterior improvements for Kroll's West at 1990 South Ridge Road, parcel BA-49-.
All right, thank you. I'll share my screen, bring up an image of the proposed improvements. There you go. All right, as you can see on the screen, Keller Incorporated has requested site plan review for some exterior improvements to Kroll's West. I think you all know where that's located. The major change is vestibule addition on the east elevation, which on the bottom, as you see here on the screen. There'll also be some additional split face stone wainscoting added, as well as some concealed fastener metal fascia added to the building as well to just kind of update the style, and the building will be painted as well. From a staff standpoint, we really had no recommended conditions of approval or concerns with the proposal as presented. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, there are representatives of Keller in the audience as well.
Pretty nice look.
Yeah, all right, there's nothing to bring up at all? No. All right, I'll move to approve as presented, staff conditions.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the site plan vestibule addition and exterior improvements for Kroll's West, parcel BA-49-3. Any other comments, concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. 6B, consider, discuss, act on a site plan review for wood cutting / processing building for builders FirstSource at 3400 South Ridge Road, parcel BA-867.
All right, I will again share my screen and bring up an image of the proposal. There you go. All right, the proposal is for a 3-sided building for purposes of their wood cutting processing facility at Builders FirstSource. As you can see, it does have the minimum 3-foot masonry wainscot as required, fully concealed fastener, vertical metal wall panels or siding as depicted. The building itself is about 4,800 square feet. It's located on the far northern side of Builders FirstSource parcel, and I can just show where that is briefly. It'll be located up in this area, right up in here. So again, off of Ridge Road, northern part of the parcel. The proposed building does meet our standards for exterior materials, setbacks, so on and so forth. Property is zoned I2 heavy industry, so the existing gravel aggregate is approvable under our code. I'll do is I'll read through the recommended conditions of approval, and then I'll just make another note following that. Recommended conditions of approval include the use of fully concealed fasteners for exterior wall panels, meet all applicable requirements of the Ashwaubenon site plan review and all other applicable village ordinances. Engineering had a couple notes. Contact the village engineer when tying the 12-inch storm line into the storm manhole to ensure proper method and sealing. And then meet with the village engineer on site to review the gravel deposited at the end of the storm discharge pipe west of the proposed building. Those are the comments from staff standpoint. We did bring up a concern about noise, seeing how this is an open building on one side. Want to make sure that that noise from wood cutting doesn't travel to the neighborhood, especially to the south Sand Acres area. So what I'll do is I'll open up to representative of Builders FirstSource. They did some research on this and can provide what they know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If you might here state your name and address, please.
I'm Michael Leidy with Property and Associates, 2585. Excuse me, that's my personal address. 1250 Centennial Center Boulevard. I was going to say, you guys don't really care where I live, I promise. Yeah, so I understand noise is partially a concern there with it being an open space. I believe off the top of my head, the residential neighborhood to the south there is about 2,000 feet away. We did take some noise readings out there right at the entrance, and I should say, when I say out there, at a comparable location that has a similar building, similar operations. At the building entrance, we were at 83 decibels. So noisy, they're cutting wood, things like that. That's at the building entrance. Let's see, 10 feet away, or excuse me, 10 feet away, we were at 83. 20 feet away, we were dropped down to 80, which, just as a comparison, 80 decibels is about the noise level of a busy restaurant that you hear in there. And then 200 feet away, which is the property line of the site, we're at 72 decibels, which is office chatter. Probably a little louder than what I'm talking right now, but that is already blended into the background of the industrial district at 72 decibels. With it being a residential area 2,000 feet away, there's not going to be any spillover that anybody's going to be able to hear sawing.
How long a day would they be sawing anyhow, regardless how long?
So when we did the reading,
If you might come up here so we show them.
I'm with Keller, part of the project. So with Builders FirstSource, we had them do the readings at a comparable site. There was days where they couldn't get readings because the saw wasn't operational. When it is, it could be anywhere from 2 to 4 hours per day. So I can't tell you it's gonna be 5 days a week. It's not gonna be your full 8-hour shifts, 5 days a week. It's gonna be something that's maybe 4, maybe 6 hours a day, 2 or 3 days a week.
Not at daytime.
Correct. Daytime operation.
Plus you can't hear it anyhow, probably too far back.
Not from 2,000
Exactly.
feet.
Okay, any other questions? Is there any way we can, if we have complaints, then what, we would have to send this out there?
Right, what we do is if we have noise complaints, just like we do currently, any other noise complaints, we send our code enforcement officer out there to first of all validate the complaint, whether or not it's a complaint that is in violation of our noise ordinance. That's how we address that.
Are they sawing wood there now?
On site or in this?
No, this is a new operation.
Oh, it's a new operation.
Correct.
Sure, it'll be fine.
Questions, thoughts, concerns, motions,
Big motion.
the staff
Staff
conditions?
conditions.
And we have a motion by Ann Kay, a second by Dennis Persick, to approve the staff conditions. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Appreciate it, everybody.
6C, consider discuss act on the 2025 NFL draft temporary sign permit package for the bar at 2001 Holden Way, parcels VA-41-2-12, VA-54-1, and VA-54-10.
All right, thanks, I'll again share my screen. In brief, what the proposal is a series of inflatable signs for the upcoming NFL draft. So it'd be those 3 days of the draft, maybe a little before, a little bit after. Under our village code, inflatable signs are not allowed unless approved by the site plan review committee. So we had a couple of inflatables in the past that were denied. The request at this time again is for the bar for the draft. We'll demonstrate these signs that will be proposed. On screen, you see their site plan. The bar being this area right here, northern part of the property. The Twisted Tea area right here, Carbless right here, Corona, Tito's, Pabst, and Uncle Mike's is going to have a tent with signage as well, not an inflatable, though just a Uncle Mike's branded tent. And because that is larger than our 32 square foot requirement for a administrative approval, that does have to come to site plan review as well.
That's all on hold room.
So yes, this is all Holmgren Way right here, and then Mike McCarthy is to the south. In terms of the signage, Carbless inflatable archway, the Corona inflatable helmet only. Excuse me. So again, the inflatable helmet, another depiction right here. One helmet that shows two. There was a concern about tethers and tripping hazards for people. They're going to bike rack those off to make sure people can't trip over the tethers or the posts. It'll be for all inflatables. This is the Pabst Light inflatable bar. And the Twisted Tea chair that you see right here. That's the sign package, and again, plus the Uncle Mike's branded tent. So make sure that's added here. It's another image of that, but as your standard 10 by 10 pop-up tent. In terms of recommended conditions of approval, signage placed inflated no sooner than 4/22/2025 and deflated removed no later than 4/26/2025. All inflatable signs to be securely tethered to the ground with anchors. Utilize bike rack panel to separate pedestrians from tethers, stakes, tripping hazard. Public safety, so the proposed site plan provides adequate ingress, egress for emergency vehicles. There was not a concern from public safety. All I had. I'm happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, representatives of the bar are in the audience, and I believe one of the vendors is online.
Before we open it up, though, I have a couple of questions. So, number one, you're not going to be selling Tito's or giving away Tito's, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you're not going to be selling or giving away Carbless.
Correct.
Okay. Is there any sales of?
Well, within the activation area, we do have it inside our facility, but within that.
Inside the bar.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then Uncle Mike's, does that need a food truck?
So they obtained a seller's permit from here.
But did they need a food truck at all? Just because it's food. That's why I'm asking.
Oh,
I don't know.
not to my knowledge, they apparently have done this at farmer's market. They're planning to sell their Kringle and some coffee, and they did obtain, we actually met with them yesterday, and they had their seller's permit from the village here.
Like I said, just because it's food, I didn't know if they needed a food truck. So that's the only reason why I was asking.
Okay.
Okay, so I am going to say that I have great concerns about this. This is just my personal thing. it's lining all along the streets. There's gonna be tons of people on those sidewalks. In the area where Mike McCarthy's here and Holmgren's here, they don't close the street until a couple of feet into Holmgren. So there's going to be a ton of people here, and then you have all of this, and I don't know. I have grave concerns. There's a reason why we don't allow it. There's a reason why we denied other inflatables at different times.
If I may,
I'm gonna have discussion first from the committee. That's my concern.
Is your concern, like you talked about earlier, tripping over them and stuff, or?
Well, tripping over them is one thing, if it's windy, if people are in the portable bar, maybe are they gonna end up in O'Connell? That's basically a joke, I'm sure that wouldn't happen. But, that is the biggest thing. And like I said, there's a reason why in our site plan, it does not allow inflatables. And I'm just afraid if we allow this, at some point, this one is gonna come in and ask for it, then that one's gonna come in and ask for it, then that one's gonna come in and ask for it, then that one's gonna come in and ask for it. And it's gonna be well, you let them do it, now you won't let me do it. That's my concern. It's a precedent-setting issue. So those are my concerns. Any discussion by the committee?
All right, we've had this, like Joel said, Mary said, we've had this in front of us before. You remember the boot. That's the last one that we have. The height on these, I don't see any height on them. They mark the sides and that's all. They don't show the height. So they're higher than the boot that we remember recently. But the concerns that you brought up, I feel the same way about it. We start one, we're going to have problems continuing. We don't need to start something that we don't very seldom get into anyway. So I would have to think I'm not in favor of this myself, especially with the crowds. I know it's advertisement, but not the way we want.
Does anybody else have anything? Okay.
The main concern is in the space that's involved, it's just gonna be too much congestion between these and the amount of people that are gonna be there. Correct.
I don't, so these two gentlemen here went to the draft in Detroit. And I don't know that people recognize the volume of people that are coming. There's massive amounts of people that are coming. We have on Thursday, didn't they say, over 160 buses, coach buses coming. I mean, that's just for the opening. So there's a lot of people coming there, and I have concerns about this. And like I said, we're setting a precedence. So.
Did they have this type of pull up things in Detroit? Did they have that there?
Not entirely close to the campus. They may have had them in other areas. I know that there were a few inflatable type devices, but they were geared more towards the actual draft activities themselves. As an example, they had some inflatables for player meet and greets and other sponsored vendors of the event. But it was a little bit difficult at times to discern whether you were a part of the draft campus or not, because they had this activation area outside of the campus on Woodward Avenue. We found out later on that was technically a part of the overall draft experience, but it was not within the secure perimeter of the campus. So we didn't see a lot of it per se, not to the density that I think is being requested.
What about
Height?
I think the one.
Well, there was just a small archway. Let's say the one I can think of is the Verizon Center as well for an archway, but Verizon obviously was a sponsoring member of the NFL and had hosted player meet and greets and other celebrity meet and greets, and they were using the inflatable as kind of a backdrop to the photo ops that you had with the players and the celebrities.
Okay.
The Pabst from Gary has on the side here, it's got 8 feet. So
Yeah,
I would
I've
say
seen
it's
the 8
probably,
feet. So, 8 times 3 is probably about 24.
If I may, my name's Ben Leslie.
Can you just wait
Why?
until we're done discussing, and then we'll let you come up, okay?
Thank you, I appreciate it.
So. Dan, do you have any comments?
Well, just the same as all the other ones is that if we do this now, I don't know, there could be a Super Bowl party someday that they're gonna ask for that. And, just because it's the draft, I don't think we start setting a precedence of approving these.
Anybody else on the committee? Or we'll have them?
I would just, again, speak to the word that I've heard several times now and that I hear a lot in zoning, and that's precedent. I think we gotta be careful because I don't see anything other than we would be setting a precedent. I don't know how everybody else feels, but.
I have a question in regards to the traffic flow in that area. Will the traffic be foot traffic or will that still be open vehicles in that area?
It'll be some both. At some point it'll be shut down to vehicles, but for the most part, otherwise it'll be open.
On draft day, the intersection at Holmgren and Mike McCarthy will be somewhat limited. So Holmgren Way north of Mike McCarthy will be basically shut down to motor vehicle traffic.
Mm-hmm.
East of Holmgren Way and Mike McCarthy, it'll be single direction. So westbound traffic on Mike McCarthy will be shut down. It'll be basically pedestrian.
Yeah.
Mike McCarthy east of Holmgren, however, is intended to be a drop location for charter shuttles and buses. So there'll be a high volume of pedestrians.
That's part of where my question comes from, because of course, when you get into a mix of pedestrians in this limited an area, they do not always necessarily mind the level of traffic. Most of these people, when it gets into activities, I haven't been exposed to one of this degree, but some of the other larger ones that I've been at, most people don't care where the stop sign is, they don't care where the intersection is, and people pretty much come and go wherever they want. If you're having vehicle traffic, especially with larger vehicles, or you're talking about buses and drop-off points and things like that, it may not be a steady flow of traffic in the sense that there's people are moving at a slower pace vehicle-wise, but there's still going to be a lot of vehicles, and that's when people walk between vehicles and all kinds of stuff. So I would say those are some concerns that I have in regards to it, because it's going to be a lot of clutter to add to the people that will be there who will be part of the biggest issue there.
People driving around during an event like you're talking about, I see it all the time, right here at game day.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be a big finale like we're doing right now. Game days, what you're talking about.
Yeah. So that's why I say I think I don't have any issues with some of the other things in there, but I think there's going to be, people are going to need as clear a line of sight and as minimal an activity of this nature in that area. That's my take on it.
Any other discussion, or we can?
Just to clarify, there will be people consuming alcohol around this area too, won't there?
One or two, maybe.
Well, just something to think about.
Isn't that what they're advertising?
Might affect the character of the crowd.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, Dan.
Aaron, so in this proposal, is the Uncle Mike signage involved or no?
It is, I just didn't have, there wasn't a rendering of the tent available. I also want to make note that that was a request of the applicant, was to include the Uncle Mike signage, which again, it's a 10 by 10 pop-up, just branded Uncle Mike's.
It's not an
So
No, not an inflatable.
if a person were to make a motion, can he make a motion to deny the inflatables and okay Uncle Mike signage, or would Uncle Mike have to come back?
No, you could certainly break it up.
All right.
Okay.
The question, is there a normal alternative to signage for something like this that's not inflatable?
You can do all sorts of banners, and we have a number of banners that'll be coming through at our next site plan review committee meeting for other establishments in the area.
Okay, should we, well, it's all, they're part of the site plan, so they can, if you'd like to come up and state your name and address for the record.
So do you want to focus on myself first, or do you want to?
Joe is on his way. So if you'd like to go first, Joe is.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Matt Molezaba. The address would be Holmgren Way, which I'm sorry, sir.
2001.
I work for Pabst Brewing Company. I'm the district sales manager for this area. So with some of the just details on the inflatable, right? So it is 20 feet tall officially is the height of it. The other dimensions on it are correct. It's 18 by 35. The entrance is 8 feet. We have rent-a-tent set up to bring 4,000 pounds worth of concrete blocks to anchor it. There's 11 anchor points on that inflatable. For wind tolerance, wind resistance, it is rated the same as most standard tents that would be put up at 25 miles per hour. We've sent some documents over too. It is also fire resistant. What it's made out of is fire resistant Play-Doh PVC tarpaulin, and we have some details, videos of showing the manufacturer lighting it on fire, not starting on fire, and just if any fire concerns, I'm really only hearing maybe wind or size concerns, right? But if there's any other more specific questions, I'm also joined by Kim Oakley, who's our Pabst Light brand manager. She's been working with the company that's manufacturing it as well, but happy to answer any questions that are in addition to the ones that were already asked.
You just brought up another interesting question. These are going to be along Holmgren Way. And if I remember right, the fire department has a setting that these can't be any closer to each other than X amount of feet. Has the fire inspection looked at this at all?
I would assume so. I would assume so.
Yeah, they look at all of this
Oh, they did?
information, and once it gets set up, when they go out there and make sure things meet fire code.
Okay, because we ran into that issue.
So they've been told that, if this were to get approved, that, this inflatable has to be 10 feet from this inflatable and, okay.
You have to meet the fire code standards, correct?
Okay.
Okay.
So just in a condition of just, if we're worried it's going to fly off, there's 11 anchor points on it and 4,000 pounds of concrete being provided by Rent-A-Tent to anchor it, which feels like that should be a lot. That is a lot.
Maybe if it was plain Pabst and not Pabst Light.
Well, of course, Pabst Light just a little bit lighter, probably easier to take off the ground, right?
They've used these before.
Yes, yep. So yeah, when we reached out to them, they were very, very much prepared to do something like this. So it's not just, it's a professional.
Okay. Any other questions for the gentleman or? Okay.
Thank you.
I did receive Uncle Mike's tent. So, in case
That's a 10 by 10.
a little longer, like maybe 10 by 20.
I believe it's 10 by 20.
Yeah.
They just got me that image last night, otherwise I apologize.
Standard.
Yeah.
No, no, no.
Okay, if you'd like to come up.
Sure, I'll come up. My name is Sarah Strickle. I'm one of the partners at Bar on Holmgren Way, and Joe is actually on his way. He should be here any moment, and he can better answer probably some of your questions for you. To start, our two partners at the Bar Holmgren Way also went down to Detroit last year to kind of, get a feel for what layout is. I know one of your concerns was these activations, for lack of a better word, running down Holmgren Way. We are prepared for that. We have rented, Joe will tell you exactly the amount. Sorry, he did manage that. But we are actually going to fence in our perimeter because of the concern that you had with foot traffic, this and that. Obviously making sure that things are tied down, there's no trip hazards. What I can speak to is a couple of the activations. I know we brought up the Corona one, which you guys saw the picture on the screen. So there is this inflatable helmet, as Aaron showed you guys. It's one inflatable. It's kind of the entrance into their activation. This is a third-party company that does these types of things all over the United States. They travel. They have actual weight ballast. So for this particular just Corona helmet, there are 4 55-pound ballasts that go on either side of this helmet that are tethered down. The tethers are covered for trip hazards. So these people are the professionals on setting up these activations, and I think they're prepared and proactive about all of the concerns that you stated earlier. Hannah from Cogent actually looks like she logged on, and she's with.
Hi guys.
Hi Hannah, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that we actually have 4 55-gallon barrels. So each barrel itself weighs about 440 pounds. So the helmet itself will be quite heavy at over 1,000 pounds of like weight holding it down versus 55 per corner, excuse me.
So you're gonna have this whole activation area, but the helmet is the one that we've got to approve.
Correct, yeah. The helmet is the only part of this particular activation that's inflatable, but as she just said, they've set this type of thing up multiple times. Hannah, am I correct on that? I'll let you speak to your activation.
Yep, we have multiple inflatables of different varieties, and we're quite used to setting them up. We'll deflate it at the end of each night, re-inflate it, and actually while the event is open, we're going to close our activation down a little bit early. We're going to have a security guard come to our space to ensure that nobody comes into the space, messes with the inflatables, messes with the ballasts, or any other items that are there until the whole event is cleared at midnight.
We too at the Bar Hungren Way have overnight security as well. So we have somebody that is on campus all night long that will monitor, watch certain things. So that's just to speak to this Corona helmet, and I had Hannah come up. Does anybody have any questions for Hannah? She's part of the company that sets up these activations. They trailer them, to cities that have functions like the NFL draft or huge events. If you want to take a look at this.
Black part, a part of the
the floor part.
Yeah.
Hannah, is that black? Is that black
or
flooring?
is that just your property?
Are you talking about the render that's there? I'm so sorry, I can't quite see what you guys are
We're
saying.
looking at rendering of page 1 on the activation elements, and basically it looks like it's set upon a black tarp type thing. Did you put that in there for the visual?
Yeah, that's just to replicate a driving lot or a parking lot.
So pretty much it'll be our parking lot under, and as you can see, they tent in here. This will be the backdrop of that particular. And then it's one helmet. They just gave us this so you could see the anchor points of how they weight it down.
So
I just have a general question.
Sure.
You call this an activation element or site or something?
Yeah.
Now, when I look in here, they all have one of these, right? And so what we're really kind of looking at is just the entrance to that area?
I'm sorry, I misunderstood. They all have one of what?
Well, you have all of these different ones. I mean, there's the Corona, Tito's, Twisted Tea, Pabst.
Yep.
Talking about the inflatables.
Well, no, I'm trying to understand what's in that area.
Oh, I see what you're asking. Okay, so we'll call it an activation area for lack of a better word. And again, Joe is our guy that lays out this parking lot to a T with all of the, the sizes and whatnot. Each activation area is going to be completely different in and of themselves. Not every single one has an inflatable. Tito's, for example, has that they do not have an inflatable, number one. I probably have a picture of that as well. Twisted Tea does have that inflatable chair, which people use as a photo option. I did email Aaron. I mean, they have a 15-page safety document on this chair for fire retardant for different things. They also tether it down with weights. They've utilized that piece several places. And again, there's a company that comes in to set these, for lack of a better word, activations up for safety and all of that. Let's see, I'm trying to think if I have a picture.
Are each of these areas, they must have something that separates them from somebody else's area, right?
Yeah, I mean, some of them, like the 10 by 10s that we discussed, there are tent permits for the ones that we needed permits for, i.e. Uncle Mike's. So each of the spaces are mapped out where that's their activation space. They may have, as you can see in this Corona one, they've got this backdrop trailer. They've got, some fencing around it. They actually have some plants to make it look welcoming and inviting for the guests. So each area has their own elements. They're not Not one of the two are gonna look the same.
So the Corona one, you could activate that area without that helmet.
The answer to that is we could. I think the attraction to it is because it's NFL draft and the helmet itself is obviously very football geared. It's unique in of itself where the entrance to their space is kind of through the helmet, giving them that football experience. So we could certainly activate it without it, but I think the attraction to it is because it's draft. They're really trying to keep it football related for Green Bay.
Okay.
Does anybody have any other questions? So as long as we're talking Corona, we do have Hannah who is in charge from Cogent on the setup and the activation elements. If there's any other questions on those, she can probably answer them well better than I can.
I know.
No, there's nothing more.
Okay.
Okay, does anybody have any other?
All right, I've been to events that have what she's presenting. I have no doubt they are everything that she says they are. The product, and I think you can follow along a little bit NASCAR experience that you and I have had. We've seen stuff like this where we walk in, we do whatever they're trying to do and whatever. I don't have a problem with that. What your Uncle Mike's got, that's, if everything was like that, I don't think we'd have a problem. There's no height problem there. They're easy to tie down. We don't have a problem there. The only problem we have, I think, with all of us here is height and the bulkiness of it, in my opinion. And we went through this already saying, we start it once, where do we stop it? And we can't stop it when we start it. So my thing is, I would deny this on the idea of the massive size that it is. I don't have any problem with anything else. If they can knock those heights down to what we're looking at here for Uncle Mike's, I don't know. I don't think I got a problem with that either.
Can I ask, does the village have a height? Is there some sort of height parameters that we would have been able to look at prior to this? Because I'm not aware of that.
Just the fact that the inflatables are not permitted. That is.
So
what they-
there's no height, there's no height limit, because I was gonna say, we sat in several meetings of planning and I haven't gotten anything as far as a height restriction.
You had mentioned, I was kind of waiting, if Joel was coming.
Yeah, he should be here any minute.
If he would be better informed, but.
He probably will be.
My question was in regards to the parameters of the property and what there is to control the flow of the traffic as far as in and off of that corner.
Yeah, so let's see, he said he was on his way. Joe is actually the one that would be able to answer that for our traffic flow in the parking lot, because that's been taken into well consideration. I mean, we've redone this diagram a million times, estimating traffic flow. And again, they went to Detroit, so they kind of know what they're up against and what to expect. I mean, we've got a traffic flow of coming in off of Mike McCarthy. And part of the reason, I know someone brought up having these around the perimeter, part of that thought process of having all of our activations around that perimeter is because it does open up all of that space that's in the center for obviously all of the traffic happening. So our thought process was, you do look at the perimeter, we're bumping these activations up against our tents, because then obviously there aren't going to be people in between our fences in the back of these activations. So really all of your traffic is going to be within this center. So as we're tethering, some of these activations down, as we're going around this perimeter, that was the thought process in that. We're not putting something out, in the middle of the parking lot willy-nilly and trying to do it in the center. We're keeping it around the perimeter for exactly those reasons. So we can tether it, we can block it. There's not the trip hazard, and then we've got all this open space in the parking lot for that traffic flow, whether they're going to come in and go inside the building, inside the tailgate tent, come over here. The flow should go really well in the lot.
Aaron, I have a question.
Okay.
I know you don't have them all, but has anybody else contacted you or talked about other places? I'm thinking like Kroll's and Anduzzi's and all that for inflatables.
they've contacted me about other sized banners. So banners that need to come before site plan review because they exceed the 32 square feet that we can approve administratively, but no inflatable.
No inflatable. So the practice field, the stuff that's in Ashwaubenon, the NFL hasn't come and asked to put up inflatables.
Not yet.
Okay. So we really don't have anybody else bugging us. We got one more meeting, right? Before that draft?
Right, yep, 2 weeks, well, the 15th.
Yeah.
I guess if I could ask, I know that you had made mention, and respectfully, I understand, setting precedents, by allowing this. The way that we're looking at this is a one-time, in Green Bay event with this draft. And I appreciate what you're saying to the inflatables, but I mean, if we're able to prove that we're able to have them be fire retardant, have them weighted down with the proper wind restrictions.
I don't think we got a problem with
The thing for me, the thing is that this might be a one-time thing that you will request. But like I said, that one will request it for the Packer game, and then that one will request it for the Wisconsin Notre Dame game. That one will request it for the soccer game. That is what my concern is. And once you set, like Dennis said, once you set that precedence, then you always get hit with, well, you did that for them, and now you won't do it for me. And then we get sent pictures of where this happens with something, and we said no to the other person. So it's not that you specifically would be doing this.
And we can't look at it, I guess, and maybe you can't look at it like, well, this was the NFL draft coming to Green Bay one time. So for that, because of the the magnitude of the, like you had said, the foot traffic and the people coming to Green Bay.
Because the one time it's going to be the one and only Wisconsin Notre Dame game, and it's going to be, the one and only German and English soccer people, and
the NFL has had other events where we've closed Oneida Street, tore down trees, everything. I remember after the Super Bowl, we had the opening NFL game, and that was a big event. Kid Rock was there. They closed down Oneida Street. They put a stage on Oneida Street. So to say this is the only one we're going to have is probably wrong. That's what I meant by if we win a Super Bowl, they're going to do it again. So it's an NFL thing.
Yeah.
Well, I guess respectfully, I would ask you folks, because maybe I'm not the one to answer all of these questions specifically for you. I guess, is there any questions that, again, my colleagues could answer, or Joe, or possibly one of the vendors who are the experts with this, that would steer a direction for approval on any of these that maybe I can't answer? Are there any questions that in your minds?
My one question about the wind, that was answered by that gentleman right there. So that I don't have to worry about people ending up in a
No.
But my thing is the precedence. I just know it's going to keep coming back. And like Gary said, we just denied that one inflatable down the road, and we've had other inflatables at, there's a reason why our site plan says no inflatables.
All right. Joe is logging in right now, he said. Sorry. He's a school teacher, so he gets done right about now.
While we're waiting for that, I'll just kind of read the section of code that talks about inflatable signage. So the site plan review committee is familiar with that. So as it's been discussed, so within the code it states inflatable temporary signage is prohibited unless reviewed and approved by the Ashwaubenon site plan review committee. The review shall take into account size, the time frame, public safety, surrounding zoning, and any impacts on surrounding properties. So by default, inflatable signage, temporary inflatable signage is prohibited, right? So you're looking at those things, it's not a by right factor. It's not even a conditional use factor where you would have to then justify why you would deny it. It's just denied outright. So the burden is on the applicant to show to you that from a size, time frame, public safety standpoint, surrounding zoning doesn't have substantial impacts to not only the days of the inflatable, but potentially what could come as a result of allowing it, as you talked about with regards to precedents. The other thing I'll mention is, and it's not necessarily related specifically to this provision within the code, but the NFL has requested a clean zone be established around the draft campus. And typically what they do is they ask the host community to adopt an ordinance that would restrict certain things like inflatable devices, inflatable signage within a certain distance from the campus. They have not asked us to create a separate provision within our code as a clean zone ordinance because they felt that our code was sufficient to begin with, recognizing that inflatable temporary signage is prohibited by code. So just not that we're here to satisfy the NFL, but obviously there would have been other provisions put into place or requested for the village to put into place if we hadn't by code outright prohibited inflatable signage.
So I'll make a motion.
So the village is not gonna allow inflatables inside the footprint then either, when the NFL comes with?
So how that would typically work is if there were inflatable signage inside the campus, one, it could be in Green Bay. So there's part of the campus is in Green Bay, part of it's in Ashwaubenon. And two, that comes in as part of the special event application that the NFL provides. So there's a lot of provisions within a special event permit that get reviewed and approved by the village, whether it be temporary signage, it could be street closures, all sorts of aspects. So it encompassed into that realm and it creates some exclusion.
Dan had something.
So what did you want to say, Dan?
I was gonna make a motion. I'll just, if we're ready for a motion. I'll make a motion that we deny the inflatables and we approve the mics signage.
10 for the Uncle Mike's?
I don't have a problem in seconding that. I would like to give these people an opportunity to come back at our next site plan meeting. If you have something that fits something like Uncle Mike's or something that we could help you with. So I don't have a problem on anything that you brought as far as anchoring down the quality, the people you're working with. I don't have a problem with it. It's strictly size that we're talking about, in my opinion. So I'll make the second motion.
So
Okay,
for,
we have,
so
excuse
for,
me just a minute. We have a motion and a second to deny the request for the inflatables, but allow the tent for Uncle Mike's.
Uncle Mike's, right.
Okay,
With staff conditions.
so for instance, we discussed Corona here, and when you had looked at that, you said, okay, so the only thing there is that inflatable helmet, but then everything else is all right within that
If
activation.
we're in sizable in height or so with that, you could bring some of that.
Except leave everything else in here is good.
would they have to bring that back, Aaron? I know Katie's been working with them on
No,
the trailer.
no, I mean, we're approving the package. So what you do is basically you're approving the package minus the inflatable component of that package.
That's right. So everything else, for the moment, show everything else is good. Fenced in area here, everything we got it. It's good.
Well, this is probably typical anyway.
Yeah.
Different.
Okay, so my understanding is that the activations in and of themselves with the elements are fine as long as it's not an inflatable.
Correct.
And just to clarify, Gary, your point is, your concern is size of the inflatables with respect to the impact of the whole situation.
Okay.
So now, Aaron, I have a question then. So let's assume they axe the inflatables, but come with a tent similar to what we just approved for Uncle Mike's. Do they have to come back, or is that gonna be something you can just take care of?
Unless it meets the 32 square feet, it needs site plan review committee approval.
Does anybody have a question for Joe? He is actually logged on to the meeting. I don't know. I know you had asked earlier about the perimeter.
Yeah, my only question, and if it were I would recommend it, is that those outside parameters, just so that you have a controlled access point and things like that, is that outside edge, particularly along the street side, that those areas are fenced off so that you can control who's coming in and who's going out. That's my greatest concern.
Well, we do that at the church, as you well,
Right,
you're
right,
familiar with what
right.
I'm saying.
That's
We fence off the area closest to,
right,
Cormier.
right, and
So that
that's,
nobody can get out.
again, that's where I say, I think that's serves a better purpose.
Is it open for me to speak on the fence? I don't know if that was
Um,
answered by Sarah or not.
Could you please state your name and address for the record?
Here, my name is Joe Zarin, 1809 South Sunkist Circle, De Pere, Wisconsin, representing the bar 2001 Holmgren Way, Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Okay.
So I know there was some question as to our fencing that we are putting up. We are going to use mostly 6-foot tall cyclone construction fence. We have some in our parking lot that we enclose our outdoor pickleball area with. And then in other areas, if there are trailers that are being used by any of these activations, we are going to use those as well as our bike racking fencing. But most of it, the majority of it will be the 6-foot tall construction style cyclone fencing.
I don't have a problem with the fencing.
No fencing, good.
Nope, that sounds fine to me.
Okay. So we do have a motion and a second to deny the inflatables,
Have them come back.
but approve the Uncle Mike's tent.
And the layout, the rest of the layout.
And the other activations are fine, right, as long as there's not the,
Right.
It's exclusive of the.
What you'd be approving is the sign package plus Uncle Mike's minus the inflatables.
Right.
Thank you.
Joe, did you hear that?
Yeah, the temporary structures is Katie, and that's a different thing.
Okay.
Okay, does everybody understand that motion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Yeah.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, items for next agenda. We have items for next agenda.
Definitely.
Overwhelming.
Meeting is scheduled for 18th, correct? So that meeting will happen.
Okay. And need a motion to adjourn. Motion and second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Could I put Dennis and who?